Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharini Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarini Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripasindhubhya eva cha Patitana Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. May Lord please guide us all so that we can understand each other's actions without condemning them and without condoning them. Hare. So today we'll be discussing about Duryodhana, and we will discuss, while the focus will be on the 18th day of the war, but we will go backward and we will discuss a little bit about the evolution of his character. Generally speaking, when somebody does something wrong, when the wrong action happens, depending on whether we like or dislike the person, if there is raga toward that person, we tend to condone that action, overlook it. It's not a big thing. We try to ascribe it. Generally, one way of condoning it is to ascribe it to the circumstances. Say that it is circumstantial. If there is dvesha toward that person, wrong action by others. So when there is dvesha, then we go towards condemning that person. That is a terrible person. And in this case, we assume that the action is intentional. That the person deliberately did it. Knowingly did it because they are a bad person. So if we like someone and they suddenly yell at us, or they yell at a third person, and they're very harsh and a bit fierce, then if we don't like them, this person acts like is very gentle and soft, but this is what they are actually. That's how we see it. On the other hand, if we like that person, we say, there must be something going on in their life, because of which they might be under some pressure. So now, while I put these as extremes, the fact is that both may be valid reactions. But why I put it as extreme is, what is in between required is comprehending or understanding. That understanding why someone did what they did. And then afterwards, after understanding, we say, yeah, it was circumstantial, and we may overlook it. Or we may say, no, this person thought about it and they did it, it's intentional. So from here, normally when we talk about pendulum is that we think that we want to come to the middle. But sometimes we may stay in the middle, sometimes we may go this way, sometimes we may go this way. It's possible. By comprehending this, okay, I understand this, but maybe I'll have to spend some more time to decide whether this is circumstantial or intentional. I will reserve judgment. But the idea is that comprehending the actions of others is important. Yesterday, I had started by talking about, are people innately good or innately bad? So I had started by talking about how in the Christian tradition, there is the idea of human nature, in Western philosophy in general. And their idea is that while ultimately we are parts of God, we are all sparks of God, we are made in the image of God, that is their idea. But they say everybody is contaminated by the original sin. So their idea is sin is almost like a genetic defect. that is passed down generation to generation to generation. So by birth, everyone is sinful. And then the problem, of course, comes up that if everybody is contaminated by the genetic defect of sinfulness, why are different people having different natures? In spite of their contamination, some people are good and some people are bad. So why this difference? That is difficult for that particular philosophy to explain. Now the leftist idea, as I mentioned, is that people are basically good, but because of social injustice, social exploitation, family conditions, they tend to become bad. Now the Vedic understanding is that when we use the word innate and inborn, now everything inborn, innate means like it's almost intrinsic to the person. Inborn means we are born with something. So in the Vedic tradition, these two words are not the same. Inborn, what we are born with, is not necessarily innate to us. Why is that? Because in the 16th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says that the Daiva Nasura Sampad, that is there, Abhijatasya Bharata, that some people are born with the divine nature, some people are born with the demoniac nature. But while they are born with it, if you understand that we have the body, then we have the mind, and then beyond that there is the soul. So now the body we are born with, the body and mind, both of these can be referred to as inborn. But the soul's characteristic, that is innate. So at an innate level, we are all good. But at the inborn level, we can be good, we can be bad, or we can be anywhere in between. So this is what we call as the muddle in the middle. That everybody has spectrum of good and bad. Now this is basically in terms of the samskaras in the mind, the impressions that a person carries from the past. So everybody may have some good impressions, some bad impressions. Now we could say for those who are of a divine nature, majority of the impressions that they bring from the past life are good. A few might be bad. For those who are of a demoniac nature, the majority of the impressions are bad. They may have a few good impressions also. So why are we discussing this right now? We're going to discuss about the character of Duryodhana. And when we talk about this, so are people innately bad? No, even Duryodhana is a pure soul, is a part of Krishna. But at the same time, from inborn characteristics, somebody can be a bad person. That is, what does it mean? That based on their past karma, they have a harsh nature. They are rude. They can be cruel. So normally we don't want to think of children as bad people. And because children are innocent, but sometimes we may say that there are some children who are bullies, and they get pleasure in hurting others. And in the Bhagavatam there is a story of Vena. He was a prince, but he was a brutal prince. So there are cases where somebody may have a nature coming from the past which can be quite good. So generally speaking, when somebody is born, so I'll talk about a spectrum of relationships. So Duryodhana was here, then Dhritarashtra is here, then Shakuni and Vidura. So we'll talk about these 4 relational dynamics and how things work out between them. So now, right from the beginning, when Dhritarashtra had the son Duryodhana, now from his perspective, he had waited for a long time to have a son. And while some dramatized retellings of the Mahabharata say that there was a lot of resentment in Dhritarashtra because Vidura became the king. But at least as far as the original Mahabharata goes, there doesn't seem to be that he was very resentful. He accepted that, I'm not Vidura, I mean Pandu. That Pandu became the king and he accepted it. Pandu respected him, Gandhari was a faithful wife for him. He accepted his position. But when Duryodhana was born, and at that time, right in the beginning, then at the time of the birth itself, there were many inauspicious signs. Those inauspicious signs were there. That's the time the first incident of the tension between the relationship between Vidura and Dhritarashtra came. Vidura told Dhritarashtra that this son will become the cause of the destruction of your dynasty. Abandon him right now. Dhritarashtra thought this is outrageous. How can you ask any father to abandon their child? How can any parents be expected to abandon their child based on some signs that in future this person will become a bad person? Now that's, in one sense, Vidura's request or Vidura's suggestion could seem outrageous. But the point here was that, yeah, of course it was not a pleasant suggestion. And Vidura did not just give that suggestion casually. The point was that Dhritarashtra had two roles. He was a father, he was also a king. And now, as a father, naturally he wants to protect his son. But as a king, what it means is that his son is going to become the next king. And he has to consider whether this person will be worthy enough to be the king. So, in one sense, that he was calling upon Vidura was calling upon Dhritarashtra that you have to prioritize your duty as a king. And so, as a father, he should keep his son with him. But as a king, he has abandoned. Now, abandon his son does not necessarily mean just throw him away in the forest. He or kill him. Certainly not. It could mean that he could have given him to some family and they could have taken care of him. And he could have lived like that. And the Duryodhana would have become whoever would have become. But he would not have had this power which would go to his head and he would not abuse that power. So see, what happens is that we all come with certain tendencies. And now, the kind of tendencies we come with from the past. So it's like, we could say, our tendencies from the past disposition, we can say, and the present situation. Now, if the past disposition is positive, that means we have got samskaras, and the present situation is positive, that means the person is also born in a good family. So then what happens is, this is the best future most likely for this. Krishna talks about this also more from a spiritual perspective, but that principle applies here also. That he says somebody has practiced bhakti previously, so what happens is they will born Shuchinam Shrimatam Gene. Now what is Atava Yoginam Eva Kule Bhavati Dhimakam. So that person has good tendency from the past and that person is born in a good family. That is the best situation to be in. Now somebody has a negative disposition for the past and their present situation is negative. Now by negative what I mean is, it is not necessarily that they are poor and powerless. By positive I mean that it is like there is a virtuous upbringing. That it is not necessarily filled with wealth. Wealth is fine, but it's a virtuous upbringing. But if the negative situation here would be that the person has a powerful but non-virtuous upbringing. So negative in the sense that the the negative tendencies are likely to be built up. So, for example, say somebody has a violent tendency and they are born in a family of the mafia, then that is going to be a deadly combination. So, this is like the worst future. Now, in many ways, the past disposition that we have, we can't change that. So, when we do the Garbhad and Samskar and all those things, the idea is that you want to attract a soul who also has a good disposition. But ultimately, life is unpredictable. We are not going to condemn people based on their past lives, even our own childhood maybe. So, the idea is that the past disposition, whatever it is, we can't control it. But if the past disposition is positive and the present situation is negative, now these two will be incompatible. But it depends. From here, a person could go here. That means they work hard and create a good situation for themselves, or this will be good, or they could go this way. On the other hand, if somebody's past disposition is negative, so but their present situation is positive. That means it's a situation where can the good upbringing overcome past condition. So this is that we don't really know. It is very much possible because it is that the upbringing and the impressions from them are recent. Whereas the impressions from the past, they are distant relatively speaking. So we can always hope and pray that it is possible. But that's why one aspect of parenting is also, it's like when we say karmanneva adhikaraste ma phaleshu kadachana, that do not be attached to the results. It's not just I work in my office and I don't get credit. It's like we are parents for our children, but we are not their controllers. They are individual souls. And sometimes if the children make choices that are radically opposite to the values of the parents, that will be painful for the parents, but that the parents should not take it. It's a personal failure for me. Now, yes, we can always say that we could have done more, but ultimately, it is every soul is on their individual journey. So we can try to get to this situation. This would be good, but sometimes it may go in this direction also.
Can you give an example of that? Is Vidura an example?
Now I'll come to this. You see now, it's also a little abstract. But say if we consider Pandavas, we can consider them eternal associates, or what the Mahabharata, Karma Kanda worldview, the Karma worldview, it says that the Pandavas were Indras in their previous life. And they were born, so they are from a virtuous background and they had a virtuous upbringing. So we could put the Pandavas over here. So a virtuous upbringing, a virtuous background, a virtuous background. Now Duryodhana was over here. It described the Mahabharata that actually he was the Daityas and the Danavas, they performed yajna so that they would have a powerful representative on the earth. He would be like their, what is the word for it? Their advance agent. And then through him, they could penetrate the earth. So while there is an earthly battle between the prince, two branches of the royal family, it was not just an earthly battle. It is also a cosmic battle. So if we have the earth, this is the earth. And we have this battle between, we have the Pandavas on one side and the Kauravas on the other side. So what happened was, up here there are the Devatas and here there are the Danavas. So it was the Danavas, the Danavas wanted to come to the earth, and Duryodhana was their front line. And through him, it is described that many of the demons, like Karna was Sahasra Kavacha from a previous life. It was also demons. So the Devatas, they had come in the Pandava family. So it was an earthly battle as well as a cosmic battle. And in this cosmic battle, it is that so Duryodhana, we could say he had a past from which there were certain things happening, which is true. So when this battle was happening, Duryodhana, he was in the situation where he had negative impressions from the past. And now the situation that he got was a situation where it was not that Dhritarashtra was a vicious person, but Dhritarashtra was a weak person. And that weakness was exploited by Duryodhana. So the circumstances were such that, in general, when we say that can the past impressions, if they are negative, can they be checked? See, one way is that there have to be boundaries. That the boundaries have to be established by parents. And boundaries, you can say, don't do this. But the child does it, and there have to be some consequences. So, Duryodhana, whatever he did, for him there were no consequences. In fact, Dhritarashtra's concern was not to stop Duryodhana from doing something wrong. It was after Duryodhana did something wrong, how to prevent the consequences from it. That was his primary concern. And in many ways, Dhritarashtra is an example of extremely unhealthy parenting. Parenting is meant to bring out the best within the child. But Dhritarashtra's parenting brought out the worst within Duryodhana, unfortunately. So now, when going back to this particular relationship over here, Vidura and Dhritarashtra. So that Vidura told Dhritarashtra, you do not keep Duryodhana with you. Because what is going to happen is, at least he is here, you cannot change the past disposition, but you can get him to a situation where he won't have power. If somebody is evil, somebody is cruel, and somebody has power, then that's a deadly combination. So let him not be the prince. Dhritarashtra absolutely couldn't even entertain the suggestion. Then, as he grew up, over a period of time, he was powerful and he was a leader in many ways. So he grew up. I discussed this briefly in an earlier session, that how when the Pandavas came, he was the center of attention, but from there what happened was, he suddenly became not the center, but a competitor, one of the two people who might become the next king. So normally in royal families they have the heir. So they have the heir. So Duryodhana was the heir. And in royal families, what happens is that because the succession is important, so they also have a second child whom they call the spare. So now the spare situation is a very, very frustrating situation. In one sense, no brother, nobody wants their sibling to die. But unless the heir dies, the spare will never become the king. So there's a British prince who has recently written a book. It's all, they have immigrated to America, and the title of the book called The Spare. And he says how his life was so difficult. He was living in prosperity, and unearned prosperity. But still, it's I did not get this, I did not get that. So Duryodhana, what happened was, Duryodhana was born and he thought, I am the heir. But suddenly when Yudhishthira came, he became the spare. So it's natural, after the Pandavas' arrival, he would naturally feel insecure. He would naturally feel a bit resentful. Now, what happened for him was three things. First was like the attention. Naturally, when any family, a new child comes, attention of everybody goes to new family. So the attention went away from him. But then it was not just the attention. What Duryodhana was a bit entitled. So he was a bit rude, he was not the most courteous person. But the Pandavas had lived in the forest, they had been around sages, Pandava had trained them. So what happened was, okay, somebody new is curious. Like there are some people, just want to meet them once, okay, I know you now, that's enough. But if you don't want to really go further. But beyond the attention went away from him. So from Duryodhana, it went to the Pandavas. The attention went away from him, but along with that, admiration also went away. Because what happened was, the Pandavas were new, but the Pandavas were also well behaved. So, now beyond the admiration, it was, okay, you could say maybe they are well behaved. But among them, there was one person who triggered him the most. That was Bhima. Because everybody values certain things. So Duryodhana never really valued good behavior. So it's like, say, if I am a good singer, and say, if I am appreciated, I don't give very good classes as you, but I am a good singer. And everybody appreciates me as a good singer, and I give some classes also. Somebody else comes, and that person becomes a good singer, is a good speaker. And then that some of the attention that was coming to me goes to that person. Then I feel a little annoyed. But still, singing and speaking are two different fields. But if somebody else comes and they are better singer than me, then it's not only like you are taking my second serving, you are taking my first serving now. It seems like that. Isn't it? So for him, he was proud of his strength. And when Bhima challenged him in his strength, that became unbearable for him. So, while Yudhishthira was the competitor for the throne, there is Duryodhana's animosity was not towards Yudhishthira so much. It was much more towards Bhima. Because he did not really respect Yudhishthira for his good behavior. But he could not deny that Bhima was actually strong and stronger than him. So, this animosity started. And now it's understandable that the normal feelings will be there like this. If we are good at something and someone else becomes better than us, naturally we feel insecure, we feel a little bad. So in many ways, the character of a person is known primarily, or secondarily, one of the big key characters is the boundaries within which we function. That, okay, if somebody is better at a field than what I am, then what do I do? How far am I ready to go to become better than that person? So somebody will say, I'll work very hard and I'll become better singer. But somebody else says that, I will find some secret chemical and when this person is sleeping, I'll give them an injection and permanently paralyze their throat. It's a horrendous thing to do, isn't it? So, if somebody does something like that, so in many ways, one of the responsibilities of parenting is boundaries. That how far, we all have our desires and we all want to fulfill our desires. But how far do we go in fulfilling our desires? So Duryodhana's desire that he be the heir, that's an understandable desire. But for that purpose, what is the boundary that he was ready to cross? He was ready to destroy the Pandavas. And now, the first big thing that Duryodhana did was attempt to poison Bhima. So some people say that Duryodhana was a good person, but Shakuni was also spoiled. Actually, the reality is, Duryodhana was a bad person and Shakuni made him worse. He tried to poison Bhima all on his own. It was not like Shakuni gave him the right. And at that time, both of them were basically teenagers. And to go about planning something like this, see, whenever there is some wrong, earlier I said, is it circumstantial, is it intentional? So one way to know whenever some wrong is done, is it circumstantial or is it intentional? So there are many different ways to know it, but one of the ways to know it is that how much preparation is required for doing something. If preparation is very little is required, then that is likely that it's circumstantial. But if a lot of preparation is required for something, that cannot be called circumstantial. So, if some guest comes to our house and then we find when they depart that some money from our house is missing, then we will find out that okay, this person stole it. But then we confront them and they tell us that actually, I had a family emergency and my son was sick and I didn't have any money and I saw you kept your locker open. I couldn't resist. I just took it. I'm sorry, and they will return it. That's one thing. But on the other hand, if somebody earns our trust and then they ask us for various details and then we give them our bank account, they take this document from here, take that document from there. And if a lot of planning is going in stealing something, then obviously it cannot be circumstantial. It has to be intentional. So, if we consider the killing of Bhima, was it circumstantial? No, it is not that somebody else, that they were just sitting and having a meal and Bhima spoke something which made Duryodhana angry and Duryodhana just noticed, hey, there is rat poison over here. Let me put this rat poison in his food. It was not like that. He planned a whole Jalla Vihar. Let's go and have a sporting day by the riverside, and then he planned a special dish for Bhima, and that was laced with poison. So if we cannot excuse his actions as circumstantial, so in many ways, when we say circumstantial and intentional, the difference is the circumstances they come automatically, whereas intentional means you create the circumstances. You bring the situation so that the action can be done. So when in the Ramayana is said that Ravan, he tried to violate Vedavati. She was the Rishi Kanya who was doing meditation in the Himalayas, and Ravana was just wandering around in the Himalayas during his universal victorious campaigns. And he saw her and he tried to force himself on her. And then she broke free from him and she entered into fire and disappeared. Now that, it's a horrendous crime, but that could be said to be circumstantial. He was just going around and he saw her. That doesn't mean it's a lesson, it's not a crime, but it is a circumstantial thing. He saw someone and he grabbed an opportunity. But when he tried to abduct Sita, or he succeeded in abducting Sita, that was not circumstantial. Not just he was wandering around and he saw Sita. He made a cold, cynical plan to separate her from her protectors by which he could abduct her. So, what we are discussing is that, how much is the person responsible for their actions and how much can the situations be used to explain their actions. So Duryodhana's emotions can be explained in terms of his situations. Generally, when we look at our past, the past, what it can do, it can explain our emotions or explain a person's emotions. And that's why we look at the past. But it does not excuse our actions. Why you felt like that? So if I understand that, say, if we had been in the past cheated by somebody from some community, maybe 1, 2, 3 people cheated us from that community. Now, if we have to do some business dealing with somebody from that community, we would be ultra suspicious. And our suspicion is understandable. So it can explain our emotions. But just because of a suspicion that person is coming in and trying to do a business, and we badmouth that person, and we tell him that this person is a cheater, don't do business with that person. No, that would be taking a bias too far. So our past can explain our emotions, but it does not excuse our actions. So Duryodhana's insecurity, even Duryodhana's envy, this could be understandable. That's why I say we comprehend the action, and then after that we can say this is understandable, let's excuse it, or this is still condemnable. So, but Duryodhana's murder attempts, you could say, his aggressions, they are not excusable. So now, as he moved forward, Dhritarashtra, I'll make two more points over here about this particular relationship. See, we often say don't be attached. We want to be affectionate but not attached. So, what is the difference? And this could be a whole session itself, but it's an important point to just understand. See, when we are affectionate to someone, we don't like to say no to them. Say, if anybody makes a request to us, say if a child says, I want this toy, I want to go for this picnic. No parent wants to say no to the child. If a parent likes to say no to the child, there's something seriously wrong with that relationship. Isn't it? So, generally, if there's affection in a relationship, we don't like to say no when they make some request. But when we are attached, we can't say no. And whatever you ask, some people say put it as a sense of love or devotion. I can never say no to you. Now, as an expression of love, that might seem attractive, but that is not a healthy thing in any relationship. I can never say no to you. So sometimes what the other person might be asking us is unreasonable, is immoral. So many things are possible. So when the sign of attachment is there, we just can't say no to that person. So now Dhritarashtra's relationship with Duryodhana, where was this? Was it attached or affectionate? Attached. Whatever Duryodhana wanted to do, Dhritarashtra would just never say no to him. Maybe there's a little bit half-hearted, he would oppose. Everybody has, like yesterday I talked about Dushyasana had a chance. There's a part of him that went against Duryodhana. So similarly, if we consider that Duryodhana was going down and he in many ways dragged Dhritarashtra down. So there are some incidents where Dhritarashtra tried to put his foot down. So when the gambling match happened, and in the gambling match, they tried to dishonor Draupadi, and Draupadi was miraculously saved. So even that did not stop the course of incidents from going on. So they said, okay, if we cannot dishonor her in that way, we will treat her as a maid. And they got a broom and said she will broom the royal palace in front of us. They somehow wanted to humiliate her. She basically became more like a puppet in the power struggle. She was a means by which the Kauravas wanted to humiliate the Pandavas. So, rape, it can be sometimes a crime of lust, but more often it is a crime of power and pride and ego. Because if somebody simply has lust, they can go to a prostitute. But you want to overpower someone, dominate someone, exploit someone. Lust is there, but it is much more a sense of ego and pride. You are the prey and I will hunt the prey and I will overpower that person. So for the Kauravas, yes, they had some attraction to Draupadi. But it is more like an ego trip by which they were using her to humiliate them. So then when this happened, now Vidura had been repeatedly opposing. So finally Vidura said to Dhritarashtra, he said, everywhere I am seeing signs of inauspiciousness. And he said that the sacrificial fire, the yajna, the sacrificial fire that you would always keep lit in his adjacent room to the palace, he said that has suddenly become extinguished. And then Dhritarashtra got alarmed. He said, this has gone too far, stop it. It's like, somebody can, it's sometimes curious where people draw the line. Like, one person may cheat the other person, may betray the other person, and that other person is completely humiliated. And then that person is humiliated and defeated, everybody starts laughing at that person. He says, don't laugh at the person. This is where you draw the line. You cheated the person, you betrayed the person, but don't laugh at the person. So, now why did Dhritarashtra draw a line at that particular point? He didn't draw a line at Yudhishthira being robbed of all his kingdom. He didn't draw a line at Draupadi being destroyed. In many ways, he was a bit superstitious. So, see, the Mahabharata is more of at the level of the karma kanda. So, doing yajna is very important. And if the yajna fire gets suddenly extinguished, say, oh, this is something terrible. So, what happened? He actually at that time said to Draupadi, this was just a playful gambling match. It went too far away. If Gandhari and I haven't done any good to you, please remember that and forgive my sons for this. And basically, he gave everything back to the Pandavas. He please ask for some boon. And Draupadi was still furious. He said, please release my husbands. And he said, yes, of course, please ask for something more. He says, please grant all their weapons back to them. And Dhritarashtra said, I'm not satisfied, please ask for something more. So he said that, then Draupadi quoted that, according to the codes for Kshatriyas, even in emergencies, they can ask for 2 boons, but not more than 2 boons. That's why we have Kaikeyi also. She asked for 2 boons. So not more than 2 boons. And Draupadi also, she was still angry. So she couldn't resist. It was like a veiled threat. With my husbands free and with their weapons, they will get everything that they need. So Dhritarashtra was alarmed. And he said, this was just a playful match. So everything that you have lost, I'll give it back to you. And basically, the entire thing that they had lost in gambling, Dhritarashtra gave it back. And the Pandavas went away. And Duryodhana was enraged. What has happened? Then he approached Dhritarashtra. And he said, what have you done? He said, you have undone all the work that I had done. Dhritarashtra said, I was doing all this to protect you. You heard what kind of vows that the Pandavas had taken to destroy you. You saw that the sacrificial fire got extinguished. It is a great disaster coming for you. So then Duryodhana, he knew what was Dhritarashtra's weakness was his safety. He wanted Duryodhana to be safe. He said, do you think that just by returning the kingdom to the Pandavas, they are going to forgive everything that has happened? Even now I tell you, the Pandavas will be planning to take revenge and destroy us. What has been done cannot be reversed. The only thing we can do now is make sure that we become strong enough to fight their attacks. And the only way to do that is that we have to send them on exile. And then Dhritarashtra is so manipulable that he actually sent a summon and called the Pandavas back for a second gambling match. And now, it was in the second gambling match that the Pandavas lost everything. And they had to go for exile for 12 days plus 1 day. So, now of course, Dhritarashtra sometimes he took a stand. But it was like a half-hearted stand. Like a parent can say, don't do this. Don't do this, okay? Don't do it. Like the way you say it also has a particular impact. Like sometimes you say, don't do it, and the child knows I'm going to do it, the father also knows I'm going to do it. And just for the record, I said don't do it. So basically, later on, Dhritarashtra, the Duryodhana was not satisfied. That although they had exiled the Pandavas, Duryodhana was such that he was no longer happy. He thought, I'll be happy, I'm prosperous, they are poverty stricken. He says, what is the joy of my prosperity if that does not make my enemies unhappy? And if I don't see their unhappiness. There was this TV previously, Onita TV, its slogan was, owner's pride, neighbor's envy. So it's like, sorry?
Neighbor's envy, owner's pride. Same. Yeah, that's it.
Okay, that's interesting. On neighbor's envy.
That comes first and this comes
Okay, what did I say? Owner's envy. What did I say?
Sequence was upside down.
Okay, so what comes first?
Neighbor's envy. Neighbor's
Okay, neighbor's envy, owner's pride. Okay. Thinking like Mahanuspara Yudhishthira. What comes first is important. So the happiness will not come so much by you having the pride of having it, but that your neighbor is envious of it. That will give you more happiness. That's the first thing.
funny part is the company itself is gone.
One example, my neighbors throw dustbin to our house also. I should not abuse him. I should give fruits. Then he will be automatically okay. मेरे बगल वाला कचरा फेंके, मैं भी उनको आदर करके फल दूं.
So anyway, so Duryodhana wanted that he should see the Pandavas miserable. So he wanted to go in all his royal prosperity to the Pandavas and display his prosperity to them. Dhritarashtra said, haven't you done enough now? Don't antagonize them further. So Duryodhana found a workaround. He said, actually, we rule that particular tribal community over there, and we have not gone over there anytime. So I want to go there. We have a shepherd community over there. We will examine our sheep stock over there. And he said, but the Pandavas in that area. No, Pandavas on the other side of the river. I'll be on this side of the river. I won't go there at all. So now Dhritarashtra said, okay. Now that okay is like he's going to that side of the river. Is Duryodhana ever going to be able to resist the temptation to brandish his wealth? So he would get into trouble. So it's like Dhritarashtra never took a strong stand, even when he could have. And then especially Shakuni, so after Bhima was killed, so I'm talking about how Dhritarashtra stood up for some time, but not for very long. It was very, very brief. But when Shakuni came into Duryodhana's life, now what happened with Shakuni is that when Bhishma came to ask for the hands of the Gandhar princess for the Kuru kingdom, so the Gandhar king was very happy, Shakuni was very happy. But then at that time, Bhishma thought that Dhritarashtra is the elder son and Pandu is the younger son. So the first person to be married will be the elder son. So Gandhari her hand was given to Dhritarashtra. Now Gandhari accepted that as her fate, and that is her grace and her glory. But Shakuni felt cheated. Shakuni wanted that if Gandhari becomes the queen, then I will have influence in the Kuru kingdom also. So he felt that Gandhari had been slighted, Gandhari had been cheated by Bhishma. And that's why he thought if Gandhari cannot become the queen, then at least she can become the queen mother. And he saw that he felt that Bhishma was the person who had deprived him of the position that he had dreamt of, and his sister had dreamt of position. So he saw that Bhishma was very affectionate to the Pandavas. So both ways he thought that I will get what I want, I will give my sister what I want if Duryodhana becomes more powerful. And I will hurt Bhishma also by sidelining the Pandavas. Now there are some other stories which are told about some Shakuni being subjected to extreme cruelty and all that. Those are not kind of stories that are there in the Mahabharata. There may later stories might be there. But Shakuni had this agenda. So now Shakuni was cunning. Duryodhana was cunning, but Shakuni was like cunning square, cunning cube. And naturally, Shakuni came and Shakuni started giving his ideas. So what happened was, if you go back to this relationship, so now this became a much stronger relationship. I could say there are 3 lines, this is 2 lines, this was only 1 line. So what happened was, Duryodhana and Shakuni became the strongest bond, and through Shakuni's ideas, Duryodhana started becoming not necessarily worse and worse, maybe he was worse already, but he started doing more diabolical things. The whole idea of the gambling match was Shakuni's idea. The Varnava's idea was Shakuni's idea. Now, when this was all going on, now with Dhritarashtra, there is also Gandhari. Now it's interesting the way Gandhari, she was when Krishna's peace mission came. At that time, when Duryodhana rejected Krishna's peace proposal and walked out. So at that time, Dhritarashtra asked Gandhari to be called to the assembly. He said that, let Gandhari speak to Duryodhana. Now maybe he will listen to her. And Gandhari was called to the assembly, and Duryodhana was also summoned back. And Gandhari urged Duryodhana to accept the proposal, but Duryodhana did not. He was just remained insolent, and that's how the peace proposal failed. So we are discussing this backstory that while Duryodhana's emotions might be understandable, but his actions were more and more intentional. That there's nothing that could be attributed to circumstances. And then finally, when the war happened also, during the war also repeatedly people told him, Bhishma told him, call off the war. Drona told him, even Ashwatthama told him. But he refused to listen. So on the 17th day, when Dushasana was killed, at that time, Gandhari took things in her own hands. She said that, I want at least one son to survive. And her plight is understandable. She had 100 sons. She does not have a single son. So then she reached the Kaurava camp, and when she reached there, she told Duryodhana that the next morning, you come to before me the way you were born, and I want to bless you. So now when Duryodhana came along, now we will talk a little bit about higher arrangement. So he was coming along after bathing, and Krishna was passing by. Now Krishna happens to be there at the right time. So Krishna said, what are you doing? You are an adult, why are you undressed like this? So he said, my mother has told me. When she said that, you should come, you should use your common sense. At least cover your private parts, cover your thighs. And then thought, yeah, okay. And then he covered his thighs. And then he covered his thighs and came there. So Gandhari removed her blindfolds. And she had performed asceticism. In fact, her accepting the blindfold itself was asceticism. And she had great powers. So with all her powers, she blessed Duryodhana. And by that blessing, Duryodhana's entire body became invincible. So, and Duryodhana was, when she told him that, she opened her eyes and she glanced at him, she infused the ball, and then she saw that he had, why is your thighs covered? He said that Krishna had told me. This was the part of why Gandhari felt angry with Krishna afterwards. But, so she shook her head. She says, I have arranged for you to be safe. I don't want you to die. Now, again, safety. Then, there are protection can be in two different ways. Protection can be from wrongdoing. That means that we protect a person by giving them values, by giving them discipline, and there is protection from consequences of wrongdoing. So now naturally, if somebody is under our protection, say if it's our child, then naturally we want to protect them from any and every danger. Say if a child has just learned driving and they get a speeding ticket and they find heavily and they have to go to jail. They say, no, I don't want to go to jail. Whatever is the fine, I will pay. They may not have the money to pay the fine, but we will pay for that. It's just natural. Even if somebody drinks and drives, and say, no, please excuse it, we'll go to the police, we'll do this, we'll do that. We'll put our own credibility on stake to protect them. But if what we do keeps making things, lets them or becomes their excuse or reason for doing things more and more, worse and worse, thinking that, oh, my parents will always bail me out, or this person will always protect me, then that is dangerous. There are alcoholics and there are what they call as enablers of alcoholics. Like one person is indulging in alcoholism, the other person is enabling that person to indulge in alcoholism. Like whatever wrong that person does, the other person comes and cleans up the mess. So the enablers are often called as codependents. So often if the enablers don't stop and the person will keep succumbing to alcoholism. So Gandhari had come here. Now she could have tried forcefully to get Duryodhana to stop fighting. Now, of course, so much was lost. If you want, I want at least one son to live, then let that son stop fighting. Why give her a blessing? Use her mystic power in this particular way. If she wanted her son to be alive, when we think that love means protecting someone from the consequences of their wrongdoing, then that is a distortion of love. That is where the other person will start misusing or exploiting us and our love for them. So now it is a part of our relationships that if anybody else is going through trouble, we want to help them. It could be past karma because somebody falls sick. It could be present karma because they get into trouble. Relationship means we try to share each other's karma as much as possible. But beyond that, everybody has to take individual responsibility. So now if parents may keep bailing out a child who is doing bad things, but the parents are not always going to be there. When the parents are not there, then what is going to happen to the child at that time? So Gandhari, she did something out of her affection, out of her love for her son, but it was in many ways, she ended up, this is not the good thing, this is the good thing. So now the next day, on the 18th day, Shalya became the commander. Karna was killed on the 17th day. And when he became the commander, he fought heroically. This was the day when Yudhishthira came to his prime and Yudhishthira killed Shalya. Then Shakuni was killed by Sahadev. And almost everyone had fulfilled their vows. The Pandava side. So seeing Shalya and Shakuni both fall, Duryodhana fled. And he just left the battlefield and fled. And he went into a river using his mystic powers in a pond, and he hid under the pond. And the Pandavas were searching, where is he? They couldn't find him anywhere. But then finally, they promised a reward. Whoever gives us some information of the whereabouts. And then some forest dwellers told them. And they went there and then they challenged golden people, Duryodhana to come out. Duryodhana said, all of you are, so they told you, why are you hiding like a coward? After everybody has been killed, now you were the cause of the war and now you are hiding like a coward. So Duryodhana said, I'm not hiding, I'm resting. It has been a long and tiring one, so you should also go and rest. And I will, after we are both rested, we will fight. He says, oh, Yudhishthira said, we have rested enough, you also rested enough. Now come out and fight. Then he said, you are many, I am alone. I can defeat any one of you. But it won't be a fair fight. Yudhishthira said, you can fight with any one of us. And if you defeat with any one of us is the 5 Pandavas. If you defeat any one of us, then we will consider that you have won the war.
Hey.
Krishna, what are you doing? So, as Duryodhana was coming out, Duryodhana came out immediately with this. He had carried his mace with him. He said, do you know, Duryodhana is a formidable opponent. Since you are almost near winning the war, and now you have left the whole war's fate on one fight, it's a one toss of a dice. He says, even Bhima will find it difficult to defeat Duryodhana. But if he chooses anyone else, then Duryodhana also had a sense of pride. So for him, repeatedly he had been defeated. His plan had thought. He thought that one person I will defeat is Bhima. So he also challenged Bhima. And then at that time Balramji came over there and they decided to go to Srinath Panchak, where they decided they will have the final fight over there. And when they went there, now Krishna had told Yudhishthira that Bhima has greater strength, but Duryodhana has greater skill. And generally, skill wins over strength. And Bhima couldn't tolerate this. He says, oh Madhava, he says, my strength is far superior and my skill is not lacking. I will destroy him today. And they started fighting. And when they were fighting, it was almost like 2 mountains were colliding with each other. So a long and fierce fight. But this was the day when Duryodhana seemed to be fighting at his best. While Arjuna had gone to the heavenly domains to get celestial weapons, Bhima had not done anything like that. And while Bhima had been fighting, he was still physically well built, but in the forest, Bhima had not had anybody with whom to practice mace fighting. The Duryodhana had been in the palace and he trained himself for fighting. And so his skill had improved with time. And he had got a special metal bust of Bhima, which he would hit regularly, anticipating the time when he would actually kill Bhima. So Duryodhana seemed fighting with such brilliance that Bhima was repeatedly hit again and again and again. And the Pandavas started becoming worried. Now, once in a while, Bhima would land a hit, but it would be immediately followed by Duryodhana hitting him even more. Bhima was bleeding, Duryodhana was sweating, and then finally Bhima decided that the only way he could win was that he would have to take a great risk. So, when they were maneuvering and attacking, Bhima lowered his guard so that Duryodhana lunged in an opportunity and hit a severe blow to him. When he hit that severe blow, normally that blow would have killed anyone. But Bhima took that blow so that Duryodhana would come too close to him. And withstanding all the pain of that blow, Bhima hit Duryodhana back. And this blow was such that even a hill would have cracked into pieces. And Duryodhana just flung away. And when Bhima was in great pain, but the way the blow had hit Duryodhana, he thought that Duryodhana would be destroyed. Duryodhana was flung far away. He fell on the ground and he just dusted himself and got up. And Bhima couldn't believe his eyes. The Pandavas couldn't believe it. And Duryodhana gloated, seeing Bhima's disbelief. So this was the working of Gandhari's blessing. So basically, Bhima realized that there was just no way he could win the match. So it is that often later on the question comes up that Bhima hit an unfair blow. He hit him on the thigh. But the question here comes up is that if a match is to be fair, then there should not be any extra factors coming into the match, isn't it? But here Gandhari had brought in an extra factor which made it impossible for Duryodhana to win, or for Bhima Duryodhana to lose, or Bhima to win. So what was Bhima to do? Was Bhima supposed to just take blows and blows and blows, and his blows would have no effect? It's like to take a rough example from today's world. Consider a cricket match. Say if in a cricket match the rules are changed in such a way that the bowler is coming and bowling, and the bowler bowls the best spell of his life, and the rules are changed in such a way that even if the batsman is clean bowled, even the batsman leg before wicket, even the batsman is caught, the batsman is never out. What is the bowler supposed to do then? The bowler is laboring again and again and again to come and run, and whatever the bowler does, the batsman is not going to get out of it. So at this point, it's like is the bowler supposed to just be beaten up and battered by the batsman? So Bhima, later on Krishna was in Balaram gets very angry. Krishna says there was no other way to win this. So yes, what Bhima did was wrong. But so in such a situation, if the bowler is batting, bowler is bowling, and no matter what I do, I just cannot get this batsman out. The bowler may decide what I'm going to do is body line. Body line is just throw the ball at the batsman, injure the batsman. So the batsman doesn't get out, the batsman will get retired. So if some way things are rigged against us, we have to somehow get a leverage back, isn't it? So Bhima just had no option over there. What was he going to do for it? Just this is the fight he has prepared for throughout his life. And the other person, like we discussed the difference between tricking and cheating, isn't it? So when Narasimhadev came and killed Hiranyakashipu had made all these plans. By the way, I cannot be killed inside, outside, not daytime, not nighttime, not on the floor, not in the sky. All these conditions he had come with. So now if all those conditions were to be honored, then he would never be killed. And he would keep killing people. So what happened is that Narasimhadev found a loophole. So when Krishna says, Yutam Chalayata Masmi, Krishna says, among cheaters I am the gambler. One meaning is that, Krishna is the ultimate loophole finder. So what Krishna had to do was, Krishna had to help Bhima find a loophole. Now, if we consider what Narasimhadev did in killing Hiranyakashipu, was that wrong? Well, the conditions were honored, but he can still. So now, if that is the loophole that is available, that is the only loophole that has to be used. So, in the way things work with the fight between Bhima and Duryodhana, there is only one loophole, and that loophole had to be used. There was no other way Bhima could win. So finally, when this blow happened, Bhima also became consumed. Duryodhana's blow had been severe. Bhima, with his Kshatriya valor, was concealing his pain and his injury and fighting on. But he realized that cannot do it for long. And then Arjuna approached Krishna. And Krishna said, so what is Krishna? What is Bhima to do? How can he win? Now, they had been in a similar situation long ago. When was that? With Jarasandha. So Bhima had been fighting to the best of his ability and Bhima had not succeeded. And Krishna had said that you cannot defeat Jarasandha, you have to rip him apart. So then Krishna pointed to the thigh. And he pointed to the thigh. So Bhima and Duryodhana were fighting. And then Bhima would hit a blow. Duryodhana would dodge. Duryodhana leapt up. And when he leapt up and he was coming down, Bhima swung his mace and hit him in the thigh, using the full strength of his body. And when that blow hit the thigh, Duryodhana screamed in pain. And the impact of the blow was such that one blow, the whole match was over. And now when this happened, Duryodhana fell down. At that time, the Bhima's frustration got the better of him. So Bhima had been remembering. It's like sometimes we are on the right side and still we are not able to win. If we are wrong and we are defeated, that still feels bad. But if we are right and still we are being defeated, then it becomes unbearable. So then Bhima got so angry. Duryodhana had fallen down, Bhima went and he put his foot on Duryodhana's head. He said, today you have met the new end for all the atrocity that you did. Today Draupadi is revenged. Now this was something which is not to be done. Later on, we see that, or not before only, you see Bhima was also conscious when Hanumanji was coming as a monkey. You remember he has a tail and Bhima was not ready to step over the tail also. Because the idea is another human being, we don't even step over them, what to speak of touch them with our foot. So this was also not normal for Bhima. But the heat of the moment, the fury, the frustration, it all came out. And then when Balram saw this, Balram became outraged. He said, this wicked Bhima not only has killed him with an unfair blow, but now he has no sense of Kshatriya dignity. He deserves to be killed. And Bhima started Balram started charging towards Bhima. And at the end, Krishna called Balram. And Krishna said to Balram that, the Pandavas are our relatives. Subhadra is married to them. The Pandavas' enemy is our enemy. And the Pandavas have performed, the Kauravas had done great atrocities. And this was the only way the Pandavas could have won. So, I don't think Bhima has done anything wrong. So, now Balram just laughed dryly and he said, Krishna, you can persuade anyone with whatever you say. But I am not convinced. And then Balram walks away from there, gets on the chariot and goes away. Now, at this point, Yudhishthira sees Duryodhana and he says that, you don't feel sorry for yourself. He said, you have got the just result of your actions, but you have met a hero's death. And Yudhishthira tries to end things on a reconciliatory note. But Duryodhana is enraged. And Duryodhana says that, you would not have succeeded in killing me if you had not chosen to be unfair. And he says, don't think, he turns towards Krishna. He says, don't think I didn't notice. You pointed towards the thigh. I didn't believe that Bhima would have done that. But that was my mistake. He says, you are responsible for all the wild things that the Pandavas did in this war. And when the Pandavas have won, in victory they have destroyed their reputation. And he said, I will die heroically as a warrior who fought till the death. And Bhima's reputation will be stained forever for one who won by cheating. Now Bhima felt so angry, he wanted to kick Duryodhana again. And Yudhishthira said, stop. And then the Pandavas walked away from there. Now here, the way the victory happened, one of the things over here, like we discussed, with the cunning, we have to be cunning. So, could Krishna have arranged for Bhima to win in some other way? Maybe, maybe not. Like I discussed with Karna also, if you see in the immediate context, like, was it unfair? So, immediate context, yes, it was definitely unfair. But if we look at the bigger context, it was bigger and fairly unfair. Okay. This bigger context is, if you consider immediate in terms of the blow, it was wrong. But in terms of the fight itself, there was no alternative. Isn't it? That what is a person supposed to do? This is the final fight. And is there any alternative? So it's like, say, suppose the opposite side has a nuclear weapon. And that nuclear weapon is operated by one particular scientist. And that only that person knows how to operate it. And that nuclear weapon is going to destroy everyone. You cannot do anything against the nuclear weapon. You have to go and assassinate that scientist. Maybe that scientist is not a murderous person. But the scientist has prepared that. So sometimes the nature of the world is that to pursue a good end, we have to make them a less than a good choice. Now, if we look at the bigger picture, in terms of the entire relationship, what Duryodhana did was, they had done far, far more horrendous things. So, at least this was an unfair attack on a warrior during the fight. But what the Kauravas had done was, they had attacked the Pandavas in the dark. They had tried to kill, Duryodhana had tried to kill Bhima. You could say at least this blow was unfair. But one of the most obnoxious actions, most reprehensible actions is that you invite somebody as a guest to your home and then you harm them. So it's like Atithi Devo Bhava, is hospitality. Even if an enemy comes to your house, they are a guest that we treated properly. So Duryodhana had arranged the Jal Vihar festival and had tried to kill Bhima at that time. So right from his beginning, he had done horrendous things. So it was like one unfair blow in an overall fair fight. But what Duryodhana had been done throughout his life was thoroughly, horrendously unfair. So in that sense, it is the Mahabharata offers, it's not a satisfying conclusion. It's not in the sense that like the hero has a clean win over the villain. Like the hero unambiguously proves that I am better and the villain is worse, and there's win. So I'll make two last points quickly over here. That one meaning of that this word is Dukhalaya. It has many different meanings. And when you say this word is Dukhalaya, that means that it's not just that it's always misery, but sometimes one would mean is there is no perfect solution. That sometimes life puts us with no perfect solution. So then what do we have to do? We have to choose the most tolerable trade-off or the least intolerable trade-off. Trade-off means that we lose one thing and we gain things, like a compromise. So sometimes in life we can get a perfect solution, but sometimes we just don't, and we have to settle for this. And if this whole problem is solved in this particular way, but sometimes not possible. Okay, I have to give up something which is not good, but I have to give up something which is not good for the greater good. So, in one sense, to establish the rule of virtue, the Pandavas had to sacrifice on their reputation of virtue. So there is the rule of virtue that Krishna considered to be more important than the reputation of virtue. So in this world, sometimes there are no easy decisions possible or no perfect solutions possible. You just can't do anything about it. When this is a completely different context. But Srila Prabhupada sometimes criticized that he had some of his sannyasi disciples, and the sannyasis had some faults. Then he encouraged them to continue practice bhakti in some other ashram. Now he was criticized for that. The Bhagavatam itself says a sannyasi who becomes a grahastha is like a vantashi, one person who is eating their own vomit. But then what does Prabhupada say? And what is the solution? What is the alternative? Do we want to condemn such a person forever? Yes, within the Varnashram system, it's a fall. But we are not just following Varnashram, we are following Bhakti. And the ashram is important, but much more important is the principle of Bhakti. So, apichet sudaracha, apichet namananya. So the point is that there are many times devotees do terribly wrong things, not just from terms of sexuality, but even financial improprieties also. So Prabhupada did not just overlook them completely, but Prabhupada said that there's no solution in this world. What do we do? Do we condemn a person completely? No, we cannot do that. So in real life, sometimes some things which would be in a more ideal situation, we would just quickly, totally reject them. But we cannot do that in real life. So we have to accept that sometimes there have to be trade-offs. And trade-offs means if Prabhupada was ready to, what is the parallel in the situation? The parallel is that, when it became known that Prabhupada had disciples who were sannyasis and who fell away, that was a stain on his reputation. It could have been very easy for Prabhupada to reject them. You took these vows and you abandoned the vows, I reject you as my disciple. But Prabhupada did not do that. For him, that to help them stay on the path of virtue. If they give up bhakti, it would be very difficult for them to stay on the right path. So he enabled them to stay on the right path. So it's by no means an ideal situation, but that's how life is. And similarly, going back to the earlier theme I had mentioned that, when India was subjected to aggression by various aggressors, often these people, they did not fight by ethical means at all. So, when they did not fight by ethical means, by sticking to ethical means, we would end up harming ourselves. So, it is important that we also be shrewd. So, yes, sometimes a smaller, unfair thing has to be done to pursue a larger good. So, this is, again, if you go back to the start, what is Dharma? That is a driving question of Mahabharata. And the ultimate understanding is that in the case of the Pandavas, when Bhima is hitting below the belt, that is an example of Sarva Dharman Parityajya Mamekam Sharanam Vraja. The Dharma of fair fighting also has to be given up for Krishna's sake. And yes, is there a wrong in that? Krishna says, Aham Tvam Sarvapapebhyo Mokshayishami Mashuchaha. So now the important thing is that Sarva Dharman Parityajya is for Mamekam Sharanam Vraja. Prabhupada says in one lecture that the hippies, they had also done Sarva Dharman Parityajya, isn't it? They had given up their families, they had given up their education, they did not have any career. Either they were not even following the dharma of hygiene properly. But the thing is, Sarva Dharman Parityajya alone does not make do any good. It is for the purpose of Mamekam Sharanam Vraja. So dharma is not to be given up on a normal basis. There's one Gita translator, I was in America, that he said that it was a Gita Jayanti program, and there's a general Hindu program that was there. So the kids were reciting the Gita verses. And when they were reciting, they came to this verse and they recited it as Sarva adharman parityajya mamekam sharanam braja. So then after the program, I asked, where is adharman parityajya? So he showed me some Bhagavad Gita. Prabhupada's Bhagavad Gita as it has become very famous. So somebody has written a book called Bhagavad Gita as it was. His theory is, he says Krishna has come to establish Dharma. So why would Krishna tell anyone to give up Dharma? So he says, actually in the original Bhagavad Gita it was adharma and parityajya. But somebody, by doing the Pathantar means in the past there were manuscripts and you have to rewrite the manuscripts. So somebody forgot to put the and now we are putting back the that was lost. That's the Bhagavad Gita as it was. So I said this is not Bhagavad Gita as it was, this is illusion as it was, as it is, as it will be. So the thing is, the Gita begins with Arjuna's question. Pruchhami tvam dharma sammudha chetaha. So if say we go to a new country and we ask someone, what are the traffic rules for driving over here? Then that person doesn't have to say, don't break the traffic rules. You don't have to tell a person who is asking what are the traffic rules, it has to be told what are the rules, not don't break the rules. Isn't it? When Arjuna is asking what is Dharma, Krishna doesn't have to tell the whole Bhagavad Gita and his conclusion is don't do Dharma. Adharma was not an option for Arjuna only.
Wow.
So, that Dharma has multiple levels. That, this is a very beautiful point of conclusion over here. Okay, I'm not saying my point is beautiful, but rather, while this can seem very unethical or immoral, see, you remember I mentioned in the Kuru assembly, in the Draupadi gambling incident, everybody ended up choosing Upadharma. Bhishma chose Upadharma, even the Pandavas chose an Upadharma. The Pandavas chose to focus on the Dasya Dharma rather than the Pati Dharma. So the whole lesson of the Mahabharata in one level is Dharma is multi-level. And we should be able to choose the higher Dharma and not the lower Dharma. So now, even from an ethical perspective, you can make a case that what Bhima did was right. But the para Dharma is that we have to follow Krishna's will. That ultimately, the whole purpose of Dharma is to help us come closer to Krishna. Krishna is the well-wisher of everyone. Krishna wants the best for everyone. And when we do Krishna's will, we do the best for ourselves and we do the best for others. So ultimately, this is the devotional choice. And the devotional choice is not unethical. It is you could say there's moral, immoral, and there's transmoral. Or there's transethical. Transethical is the transcendental ethics. So when the Pandavas choose, when Bhima chooses to hit Duryodhana below the belt, that is not unethical, that is the supreme ethics. And it requires surrender to follow supreme ethics, especially when that is going to stain a person's reputation as unethical. But the Pandavas do that, and that ultimately is their glory. So this is a second distinct point. The first point is that in this world we don't have any alternatives and we have to make a trade-off. So this is like it's a bad thing but we have to do it. But from the Bhakti perspective, it's not a bad thing, it's a glorious thing. That somebody is ready to do whatever it takes for surrendering to the Lord. And the gopis are called by Krishna at midnight. At that time, it is not that Krishna doesn't know what is the price the gopis will have to pay for this. But Krishna is calling them still. And in that society, for a woman to go out at night to be with some other man, that is like social suicide for them. But the gopis did that, and that is their glory. So that same theme of Sarva Dharman Parityajya Mamekam Sharanam Praja is illustrated in the finale of the Mahabharata. And that's why, while it might not seem to be like a satisfying, dramatic conclusion, like a clear victory of the hero over the villain, but it is a very superlative devotional climax that ultimately all other dharma has to be given up for the dharma of surrendering to Krishna. So I'll summarize what I discussed today. We discussed Duryodhana's life trajectory, 3 main points. The first was that about, we try to understand the actions. We don't want to condone, we don't want to condemn, but we want to first comprehend. So when we're talking about comprehend, we discussed that how Duryodhana was chosen. We can have disposition from the past, and we can have situations from the present, and we have to see that the disposition can be positive or negative. The Duryodhana was here, and the Pandavas were here. So Vidura wanted to get him at least out of the situation. This was Vidura's advice, but Vidura's advice was rejected by Duryodhana. And the result of that was Duryodhana went down a very dark track. So we discussed how Duryodhana's bond with Shakuni was not the cause of his being a bad person, but it was definitely the cause of his doing worse things than what he would normally have done. Dhritarashtra and Duryodhana had a bond. Dhritarashtra sometimes opposed Duryodhana, but listened to Vidura's advice sometimes, but it was not enough. Discuss the difference between being affectionate and being attached. Not wanting to say no versus not being able to say no at all. And then finally, when we discuss the final battle, that Bhima's blow, that final blow, now we discussed from an ethical perspective, it is a unavoidable trade-off. That was the only way to win. It was an unavoidable trade-off because the whole match had been rigged against it. But from a devotional perspective, it is example for glorious surrender, where for the service of the Lord, one is ready to even sacrifice one's reputation. And Krishna is teaching us that the Paradharma is the ultimate dharma. Thank you very much. Hare. Clear to Krishna that when we face difficult situations, we can choose, we can guide it to the right thing, that we don't neglect Dharma whimsically. We try to follow Dharma, but then we don't let Dharma come in the way of Paradharma for us. So Krishna Bhagwan ki Jai, Prabhupada ki Jai, Gauru Govinda ki Jai, Gauru Govinda.
So, one of the ways we can thank Prabhuji for what he has done is actually, deeply, heartfully doing the same way that we do every morning. Vancha, Kalpascha, Hitanam Bhavadekyo, Vaishnavekyo Namo Namah, Ananta Koti Vaishnavayanda ki. I was thinking how to even reciprocate to what just happened, because it was not just a series of lectures. There was a lot of awakening messages that came from Shri Radha Madan Mohan in this very dais, Prabhuji. I don't know how. Prabhu, do you mind if I use your 1 minute? Yeah. Never done it before. So,
let's see if this is
we are here. So, we are here. This is better material world, in the spiritual world. Here is Krishna.
I'm happy to have affected you.
Here is not Krishna. I don't know, it looks like Krishna. I tried to put a peacock feather on it. So we want to go from here to there. Right, we want to go there. But here is spiritual world, here is Swarga, Atala, Vidura, Tala, and Gachibowli. Here, Prabhuji has to take us all the way to there. So you can go next. So, we put this here. And then we want to go close to Krishna, but we need purity to go to Krishna. I'm trying my best, Prabhuji. So to go till here, now we need a divine intervention in the form of some special mercy coming here, because this C, this P, and this P is special, CCP. So this is CCP coming all the way here. So I don't know what I spoke, so to summarize, all I can think of is we love you. I didn't plan to do this, bro. But
It's an emotional climax.
Now Prabhuji can never forget Gachibowli.
Chaitanya Charan Prabhu is going, but Nityananda Charan is coming next week. To the form Nityananda Trayadashi. And today also happens to be the appearance day of Advaita Acharya. Right? So there is appearance, there is also a little disappearance, temporary disappearance. Prabhuji is going from here. Prabhuji, not for the sake of saying, but if any inconveniences or any troubles you might have faced while during your stay here, please let us know. We try to work on it, improvise it. But most importantly, you attracted so many of us to come here every morning. And it's like a beautiful template of how to start a day. Though our lives have become so complicated that we can't continue this for too long. Our boss has also put some dharma, and we have sarva dharma. We have done that to come here. but I really appreciate the sacrifices made by every single devotee here to make this happen. And I wish the same spirit continues, and we benefit from these kind of sessions more and more. Today morning, I was hearing Prabhupada's morning work in Vrindavan when he was talking about establishing Varnashrama College. Just today morning, I'll tell you the link if you want. And it's a 40 minutes morning walk. And Prabhupada, like 200 times in that 40 minutes, told rascal. Without counting. So much Prabhupada was trying to tell what the society needs to change, what ISKCON has to give. And one beautiful thing Prabhupada said there is, Mahabharata has to be taught to everybody. He told that in that. He told Mahabharata has to be taught to everybody. World can be taught through these great epics, Mahabharata, Ramayana, and he said that is the syllabus of Varnashram College. Anyway, we doing the series here was not about just some storytelling or anything. It was following the vision of Srila Prabhupada that Mahabharata has to be taught in a way that we all can apply in our lives, and elevate ourselves. Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Chaitanya Charan Prabhu ki jai, Thakur Premanande. Any final words?
Icing on the cake. I don't know whether I have given the icing. It's wonderful being here, and the level of interest, the level of capacity, and the level of sacrifice that adjusting all the other things that you're doing for coming, taking for classes, that is remarkable. And the Mahabharata is a complex subject. And I have spoken on it many times before. But I felt that seeing your eagerness, Krishna probably blessed me in some ways. I was able to speak many points which I had thought of remotely, but they came in a good context over here. So, while our focus is on Krishna and Vrindavan, for living in this world, Krishna and Mahabharata teaches us a lot of lessons. And also in the world, those who know about Krishna often they have a lot of questions. I pray that not only can our own faith and devotion to Krishna increase, not only can we get guidance for living in this world through Krishna's example in the Mahabharata, but also that we can help remove the doubts and questions that people have that stop them from coming closer to Krishna and surrendering to Krishna. If any of these things happen in a small degree, whatever we have done over here, whatever service I have been able to do, that service I will consider to be success. Thank you very much.
I'd like to take the opportunity of thanking Jyotsna Mataji. Jyotsna Mataji is right there and she is taking care of the prasada needs of Prabhuji when Prabhuji was traveling and going. Let us thank her with 3 loud Haribol. And also Surbi Mataji for making sure that there is good commute available for Prabhuji as Prabhuji is here going program to program. Surprisingly, coincidentally, the driver of that chariot, his name is also Krishna. And he was taking Prabhuji to one place, to do the different programs. And let's also thank Anup Prabhu here, who has been behind everything, going through all the anxieties morning till night, making sure that all the programs are happening as scheduled and taking Prabhuji to the place. I'm sure there are a lot of learnings Prabhuji got out of this experience with HG Chaitanya Charan Prabhu. So let us thank you. And also, the center devotees are not here, but you can pass on the message. We are very grateful to the voice center of who have taken care of Prabhuji nicely, maintaining the silence and I don't know, but most of it better than last time's experience and really accommodating Prabhuji in the room with many of them, they have to make sure they get ready in the morning, going through the extra effort to be on time. And so many other austerities. Please thank them, Prabhuji, from our side. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. Krishna Krishna. Hare Hare. Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Thank you all the sponsors who also sponsored all these events in the form of prasada. Still, if anybody wants to give more, we can give it to Sri Gopal Prabhu. Prabhuji is there. Yeah, and thanking Karthik Prabhu who made prasad for everyone every single day. Today is actually appearance day, and all of us are fasting as well. So you can pack your prasad from there and take it to your respective offices. According to health, go into the fast. Hare Krishna.